Hello everyone. Welcome to Learn English by Reading. Today, we are talking about something very important. It is about a boy who lied until no one believed him. In a quiet compound where children played every evening and neighbors knew each other by name, there lived a boy, Edward. If you visited that compound for the first time, you would notice him almost immediately. He was always the loudest, always the most playful, and the one making others laugh. Edward had many friends. Children liked to be around him because he was funny and bold. Even the older people in the compound used to smile whenever they saw him running around. But there was one thing about Edward that nobody liked. Edward was a liar. At first, it did not seem like a big problem. It started with small things, little things that people could easily ignore. One evening, as the sun was going down and mothers were calling their children inside, Edward's mother stood at the door and called out, "Edward, have you done your homework?" Edward was outside, barefooted, kicking a ball with his friends. His uniform was already dusty, and his school bag was lying somewhere inside the house, untouched since he returned from school. He paused for a moment when he heard his mother's voice. He knew the truth. He had not done any homework. But instead of telling the truth, he shouted back confidently, "Yes, Mummy, I have finished it." His friends looked at him in surprise. One of them whispered, "But you didn't even open your bag." Edward just laughed and kicked the ball again. To him, it was nothing. Later that night, his mother did not check his book. She trusted him. But the next day in school, everything became clear. "Edward, bring your assignment," his teacher said. Edward walked slowly to the front of the class, holding his notebook. His heart was beating faster now, but his face remained calm. The teacher opened the notebook. It was empty. She looked at him quietly. "Where is your work?" Edward did not hesitate. "Ma, I did it, but my little sister tore the pages." The class became silent. A few students turned to look at him. Some already knew he was lying. But the teacher said nothing. She only closed the notebook and told him to go back to his seat. Days passed, and Edward continued to lie. If he broke a plate at home, he would quickly say, "It was not me." If his mother asked why he came home late, he would say, "Our teacher kept us longer in school." If he forgot to run an errand, he would say, "I went there, but the place was closed." Every time he lied, it became easier, and every time he got away with it, he felt smarter. One afternoon, something happened that made him laugh more than ever. He ran into the house suddenly, shouting at the top of his voice, "Mummy, Mummy, there is a snake outside." His mother, who was cooking, dropped the spoon immediately. Fear rushed into her chest as she ran outside without even thinking. "Where is it?" she asked, looking around quickly. But there was nothing there. No snake, no movement. Just the quiet compound. Then she heard laughter. Edward was laughing so hard that he could barely stand. "I was joking," he said. His mother looked at him, her face slowly changing from fear to disappointment. "Edward, this is not funny," she said quietly. But Edward did not understand. To him, it was just a game. A few days later, he did something even worse. This time, he ran outside shouting, "Fire! Fire! The backyard is on fire!" His voice was so loud that neighbors heard him immediately. People rushed out of their houses with buckets of water. Some were shouting, but once again, there was nothing. No fire, no smoke, nothing at all. The compound became quiet, and the people were angry. One of the older men stepped forward and looked at Edward with a serious face. "You think this is a joke," he said. Edward laughed again, but this time, nobody laughed with him. That was the day everything started to change. People stopped believing Edward. At first, it was small. If he said something, people would ask, "Are you sure?" If he told a story, they would look at each other before responding. Even his friends began to ignore some of the things he said. Then slowly it became worse. One afternoon, Edward came home looking worried. "Mummy, my teacher said we have a test tomorrow," he said. His mother glanced at him and replied, "Is that true? Or is this another one of your stories?" Edward paused. For once, he was telling the truth, but his mother did not believe him. That moment felt strange. But still, he did not change, until the day something happened that he would never forget. It was a quiet afternoon. The compound was almost empty because most children were inside resting. The sun was high, and the air felt still. Edward was playing alone behind the house, kicking a small stone around and humming to himself. Then suddenly he heard a sound, a soft, dragging sound. At first he ignored it, but then it came again. He turned slowly, and that was when he saw it, a long, dark snake moving quietly across the ground, heading in his direction. For a moment, Edward could not move. His body froze. His heart began to beat so fast that he could hear it in his ears. Then suddenly he screamed, "Mummy!" His voice was loud and sharp. "Help me! There is a snake!" Inside the house, his mother heard him. She stopped what she was doing, but she did not move. She closed her eyes briefly and shook her head. "That boy again," she muttered. Outside, Edward screamed louder, "Mummy, please, it's real." Neighbors heard him too, but nobody came. "He's lying again," someone said from a distance. Edward's fear grew stronger. The snake was getting closer. His legs began to shake. He quickly climbed onto a small stone nearby, trying to stay away from it. Tears filled his eyes. "Mummy, please," he cried, but still no one came. For the first time in his life, Edward understood what it meant to be alone. Not because people were not around, but because nobody believed him. Just when the snake was getting dangerously close, an old man passing by the compound gate heard the noise. "What is going on?" he called out. Then he saw it. Without wasting time, he picked up a long stick and rushed toward the snake. With quick movements, he hit the ground near it and chased it away until it disappeared into the bushes. Edward collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily. His whole body was shaking. Moments later, his mother came outside. "What is wrong this time?" she asked. But when she saw his face, she stopped. This was not laughter. This was not mischief. This was fear. Real fear. "Mummy," Edward said softly, his voice breaking. It was real. The old man turned to her and said gently he was telling the truth, but nobody believed him. Silence filled the air. Edward's mother looked at her son, and something changed in her eyes. And in that moment, Edward understood something he had never understood before. Lying had taken something from him. Something important. Something he did not even know he was losing. Trust. From that day, Edward stopped lying. Not because someone forced him, but because he had seen the danger of it. At first, it was not easy. Even when he told the truth, people still doubted him. "Are you sure?" they would ask. But Edward did not get angry. He understood why. Slowly, with time, patience, and honesty, people began to believe him again. But he never forgot that day. The day he told the truth, and nobody came.